I think that it is becoming a business imperative to have somebody focused on ESG. I think where it can be most successful that is where ESG is actually embedded throughout the whole company. So you can't just rely on one person to fix everything, but that one person is really important, or a team of ESG expertise, depending on how big your company is really important to start to build the shift in thinking, in mindset and behavior, in culture across the business to really embed it. Because only those companies where ESG is being considered in finance, in HR, in operations, in strategy at the board level are they seeing the real value and the real benefits. You can tick the boxes and you can meet the legislative demands, but actually to benefit from the huge value that comes with ESG, everybody needs to be thinking about it. So I think why it's important right now is um, not only legislation becoming more and more pressurized on bringing more and more pressure to companies to deliver carbon reporting or social reporting and wider environmental impact reporting. But customers are asking for it because the big customers out there, the big companies out there are having to report on against net zero targets. Those net zero targets include a portion of emissions related to their supply chain. So they are reliant on their supply chain to meet their net zero targets. So there is a lot more pressure on suppliers from customers to be on their ESG game and be measuring and addressing their emissions. So there's a legislative driver, there's a customer driver, there's often an investor driver. More and more investors need their assets to report because they see the value of ESG and the risk of not doing it as well. And also, like, just generally being a responsible corporate citizen, employees want to see their companies doing the right thing. So there's a brand and there's a kind of workforce driver there as well. So yeah.
And thinking about those organisations, having a dedicated ESG person, what opportunities do you think it brings for them and, sets them apart from other organisations?
Yeah, and it's a really important thing to be thinking about, like, what is the opportunity of ESG? It's not just about risk mitigation. It's not just about, delivering the reporting to the investor and legislation, as I was saying before. It is about opportunity creation and value creation for the business. I believe more and more RFPs are including ESG requirements. So there's a kind of a revenue and a commercial reason to be doing opportunity there. There's also within ESG, there's a big focus on risk, so risk management, both sort of short term, medium term, long term. So around changes in the legislation, changes in technology, changes in markets, and shifts in the physical climate and how that might impact your business. So by looking at this stuff, there are opportunities to become not only more commercially sort of progressive and getting a stronger position in the market, but also to becoming more resilient as a company, as an operation. So you've thought about when there are increasing heat waves in California that might impact on your people's health. You've thought about increased flooding in India, which might put at risk some of your operations, or where your cloud-based provider is. You've thought about interruptions to network. How are you going to keep the show on the road when these things are becoming more and more frequent each year? So I think the opportunity is to secure the business more for the long term, to be more resilient, and to get the kind of commercial advantages of showing your full supply chain and your employees and your investors that you're doing the right thing and you're thinking about all this stuff.
Yeah, agreed. And finally, new person coming into our industry, taking up the challenge of that ESG role, what top tip would you give them?
I would say don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot to know in sustainability. Everybody's learning the whole time. I don't know that many people know it all. So, it can feel like there's a lot to take on board and there's a lot to understand. Some of it's quite scientific, and I think know your boundaries of what you know and where you're confident, and where you don't know, get some help, and sort of recruit other people or recruit externally or whatever you need to kind of bolster. Don't try and pretend that you don't try and wing it and pretend you know everything, because nobody can. And the other thing I'd say is just be pushy, like know why, know the drivers and understand the reasons why it's really good business to be doing this stuff, and back yourself, and so be pushy in that role, because you have to be, because some people still unfortunately do see it as a knife to have, or something that sits in kind of broader cultural initiatives, and it's just, and those companies will end up um being laggards basically, and you want to be leaders, so you want to be pushing, and you want to make sure that your exec is on board, and that you have advocates in the business. So find your allies, and just keep going on your mission, and find allies within the industry as well, which is what this is all about, right?